I am 87 years old, and I want to tell you about the year I started leaving food on my plate on purpose. Not because I was sick, not because a doctor took something from me. I did it at my own table with my own hand, and it is the hardest small thing I ever taught myself. There were 11 confessions I had to make before I could do it. 11 reasons I had been eating that had nothing to do with hunger. Could you name your own 11 tonight? I wrote every one of mine on the back of a seed catalog, and when I finished, I did not feel ashamed, and I did not feel proud. I felt honest, maybe for the first time in years. When were you last honest about your own plate? So come closer if you have a minute. Pull a chair around and sit with me a while, the way people used to sit after a meal. I am not telling you to go hungry. I am not telling you that food is your enemy, or that the pleasure of a good supper is something a person surrenders because his hair went white. I am not going to hand you a list of what to eat. So why would an old man make a discipline out of leaving a little behind? What I have to say is older and stranger than a diet, and it lives in the part of a meal that comes after you have already had enough. My grandmother said a person should rise from a table the way he rises from a good conversation, a little sorry that it ended. She said it so often it stopped meaning anything to me. She was the most generous cook in the settlement. She would pile a plate until the table groaned, then sit back with her hands folded and watch to see whether you knew where to stop. Did anybody ever teach you where to stop? That was the teaching, hidden inside her hospitality. Offering is the old way of loving people. Setting the fork down is the old way of respecting yourself. Hunger, she told me, is a young animal, and it does not die when the rest of you gets old. It only stops being useful. Appetite outlives the need for it. The first confession is the oldest one, and it goes back to a boy in a cold house. There was a winter when you could see the tin at the bottom of the flour can, and my mother measured supper with a coffee cup so it would reach the end of the week. Nobody in that house left anything on a plate. You wiped the plate with your bread, and then you ate the bread. 70-some years later, in a warm kitchen with a full pantry, I was still wiping the plate, still eating past the point where my body had quietly said, "Thank you. That is plenty." My grandfather told me a child who has been hungry will spend the rest of his life arguing with an empty bowl. Is that old winter still sitting at your table, telling your hand what to do? The fix was not willpower. It was saying out loud, to nobody, that winter is over, and this plate is not that plate. Before I go on, one small thing. I gathered a good deal of this into a small collection called The Native Way, and the link is in the description below this video. If you want it, look in the description below, and it will be waiting there for you. No pressure at all from me. I am here either way, whether you ever open it or not, and there is nothing in it I would not say to you out loud, right here, with the coffee going cold between us. That is all I will say about it, and I will not bring it up again tonight. Now, do you know which of the 11 I believe most people my age are living inside without ever having named it? It does not look like overeating at all. It looks like good manners. The second confession is that I ate to be polite. When a woman cooks for you, and she carries the dish over with both hands, and she stands there with the spoon in the air waiting, there is a whole language in that moment, and the only word I knew how to answer with was yes. Yes to the second helping. Yes to the third. I once ate 2 full plates at a supper after a funeral, not because I was hungry, but because the woman who cooked had buried her husband that week, and the food was the only thing she had left to hand anybody. I paid for that kindness for 2 days. Where is the villain in a moment like that? There is only a woman holding a spoon in the air, and a man who could not think of a kinder word than yes. My grandmother used to say, the thank you belongs in the mouth as words, not in the mouth as food. A person can be thanked properly with one plate and a long look in the eye. So now I say, that was so good I am going to stop while I still remember how good it was. I have said that sentence at maybe 40 tables. Nobody has ever been offended by it. Not once. The third and fourth confessions belong together because they are both about eating without ever deciding to. The third is that I ate standing up at the counter and never counted it. A piece of cornbread here. the end of the roast while I was putting it away. A handful of crackers while the kettle came up. If you had asked me that night what I ate, I would have said one supper, and I would have believed it. My grandfather said food eaten standing up walks into the body without knocking. The fourth is that I ate by the clock instead of by the body. Noon came, so I ate. 6 came, so I ate. My grandmother said the clock has never once been hungry in its life, and it is a poor judge of when you are. Now, before I fill a plate, I ask my own belly one plain question. Are you asking for this, or is the kitchen just asking? Half the time the belly says nothing at all, and the silence is an answer. The fifth confession is a heavy one. After my wife passed, I ate my grief. Not at supper. At 10 and 11 at night, with the house so quiet I could hear the refrigerator thinking. A neighbor brought a pie the day of the burial, and I ate it standing at the window in the dark, in 4 nights, out of the tin, with the same fork every time. Sweet things, mostly, for the better part of a year. There is a comfort in chewing that a lonely man cannot get anywhere else, and I went and got it, night after night. My grandmother said grief has a mouth of its own, and it will borrow yours. What are you actually hungry for at 11 at night? The fix was not a diet. It was admitting that what I wanted was her voice coming from the next room, and nothing in that refrigerator was ever going to be that. The 6th and 7th go together too. The 6th is that I ate because my hands had nothing else to do. Boredom is a hunger that lies about its own name, and my grandfather said hands with no work will feed themselves. How many bowls have your hands emptied while your mind was somewhere else? I used to sit through a whole evening with a bowl beside me and no memory of finishing it. Now there is a bit of soft wood and a knife on the arm of my chair, and I have whittled a whole winter's worth of useless little birds, and every one of them is a bowl of something I did not eat. The 7th is that I let the dish decide the amount. Whatever plate came out of the cupboard, I filled it to the rim, because a rim seemed to be for filling. My grandmother said a bowl is a suggestion, not an elder, and a man does not have to obey it. So I put the big plates up on the high shelf where my shoulder does not like to go, and I eat off the middle ones now. It is a small trick, and it has worked better than my willpower ever did. The 8th confession is that I ate faster than my own body could report in. When you are young, the message comes quick. When you are old, my grandfather said, the stomach sends its letter by slow horse, and it arrives 20 minutes after you have already finished. When did that letter last reach you in time? There was a Sunday I ate a whole plate of stew in the time it took my grandson to butter his bread, and then sat there feeling nothing at all. So I went back for more, and by the time the truth caught up with me, I could not get comfortable in a chair for the rest of the afternoon. Now I set the fork all the way down between bites. It felt ridiculous for about a week. Now it feels like sitting down properly to my own life. The 9th confession is that I finished what other people left. Grandchildren mostly. Half a sandwich here, 4 bites of potato there, scraped onto my plate so it would not go in the bin, because in the house I came from, waste sat very close to a sin. At my grandson's birthday, I ate the corners off 3 abandoned pieces of cake, standing at the counter, telling myself I was only cleaning up. My daughter caught me at it and said nothing at all, which was worse than if she had said something. My grandmother said scraping a plate clean does not unwaste the food, it only moves the waste out of the bin and into the body. That one stung. It is still the truest sentence anybody in my family ever said about eating. The 10th is the night kitchen. Standing in the dark with the refrigerator door open, lit up like a little church, eating something cold at midnight because sleep would not come, and I did not want to lie there listening to the house settle. I could have told you every shelf in that refrigerator by heart, in the dark, by reaching. My grandmother said nothing eaten after dark ever tells the truth in the morning. She was right. It was never hunger. It was the hour and the quiet and the wanting of company. The morning always sent me the bill for it, in my knees, in my breathing, in the hour it took to feel like a man again. The 11th confession is the one I am least proud of, and it sits underneath all the others. I ate to prove I was still a man who could. still had his appetite, still could take a full plate at a family table and not be the old one who picks at his food while everybody pretends not to watch. At a reunion 3 summers back, I took the big plate on purpose, in front of my nephews, and loaded it the way I would have at 40, and then I had to sit in the cab of my truck with the door open for half an hour before I could trust myself to walk across the grass. Nobody was fooled but me. Who are you still trying to convince? Every big plate was an argument I was having with my own age, and I lost every one of them because a plate cannot make a man younger. It can only make him slower. My grandmother said wanting and needing look alike when you are young, and after 80 they do not look alike at all, and the whole art of growing old well is telling them apart while the food is still in front of you. Rising from a table still wanting a little is not deprivation. It is the last discipline a person is still strong enough to practice on purpose, and it belongs to the spirit every bit as much as it belongs to the body. Now, naming those 11 was not the same as hating myself for them. I have watched people my age take an honest list and turn it into a rope. Every one of those 11 started as somebody trying to survive, or trying to be kind, or trying not to be alone in a quiet house. A boy who eats every crumb in a hard winter is not a glutton. He is a boy paying good attention to a hard year. A man who takes a second helping from a grieving woman is not weak. He is holding up his end of a kindness the only way he knows. So does a list like that make you a glutton? Or does it make you a man who has finally looked? These were things I did, and things I did are things I can watch. There is a great difference between saying, I am a man who cannot stop eating, and saying I am a man who has not yet noticed when he starts. The first one closes a door. The second one just describes a Tuesday. I did not stop being generous when I stopped taking the third helping. I did not stop honoring my mother when I left a bite of potato on the plate. If anything, I honored her more, because she went without so that I would one day have a choice, and I am finally using it. So do not read your own list as a verdict. Read it the way you would read a map somebody handed you at the edge of a town you have been walking around in for 50 years. So let me gather this up for you now, the way my grandmother gathered the ends of her shawl, eating out of an old hunger, eating to be polite, eating standing up, eating by the clock, eating my grief, eating out of boredom, letting the dish decide, eating faster than the body can report, finishing what other people left, eating in the dark, and eating to prove I was still the man I used to be. 11 of them. Now turn each one around and hold it up against your own table. When you clean the plate tonight, whose winter are you still eating through? When you say yes to the second helping, are you feeding yourself or thanking somebody in the only language you think they will hear? Does the clock tell you when, or does your body? What is really in the refrigerator at 11 at night? And is it food you are after at all? Who taught you that a rim was for filling? Whose leftovers end up on your plate because throwing them out feels like an insult to somebody long gone? When did you last set the fork down and wait for your own body to send word? And the hard one, the one I sat with the longest. When you load that plate in front of your family, who exactly are you arguing with? I know somebody listening is already saying it quietly, with a hand flat on the wood. Is it too late for me? Did I let the years slip? Is there anything left in an old body worth disciplining? I have asked all 3 myself at this table. Here is all I know. Age took a good deal from me. It did not take the noticing, and it did not take the choosing. You can still catch one habit in the act tonight, one, and you can still set the fork down while there is food left in front of you. What would it cost you to try that at one meal? I cannot promise you what it will do. I only know the noticing is still yours, and the choice is still yours, and nobody gets to take those 2 off your plate. I would like to hear from you now. Of those 11, which number landed closest to your own table? Tell me the number down in the comments, and if there is a 12th I missed, put it there too, because I am still learning this myself. I read every one of them, and if this hour of the day suits you, come back and sit with me again tomorrow. There will be a chair here, and it will be warm, and I will be glad to see you.